Well, from decades-old allegations to admissions of guilt, legally speaking, what can be done after the fact? And joining us this morning, legal analyst Whitney Boan with more about this. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Amy.
All right, so let's talk first about the statute of limitations, because a lot of these stories that we're hearing, Whitney, are from decades ago. Does that factor in?
Of course it factors in. We have statutes of limitations as it relates to various crimes. Here in Florida, the statute of limitations for some crimes, if it's just a misdemeanor can be as low as just a year or two. For some felonies, there are no statute of limitations. If you have sexual contact of a certain nature with a child who's under the age of 12, there is no statute of limitations for that. But there are all other statute of limitations that fall in between there in terms of other sexual allegations and other types of sexual conduct that's alleged by victims.
All right, and let's talk about sort of the reality of what's happening here, because in a lot of these cases, careers are being ruined, and a lot of it is simply allegations. A lot of people are saying, look, this is just simply a court of public opinion that is these people are being tried in. What are your thoughts?
And not to minimize that there's a lot of truth to this. This is something that happens. I personally know women who have been sexually harassed, who've been sexually assaulted, and who've had to endure that in silence in order to not suffer repercussions at their job. So it's not that this is not a real issue. However, it is interesting to me that a lot of these allegations are not going to be tried in a court of law, and so there's no real test to that in terms of whether or not there's any truth to it, maybe even in the form of a police investigation. If it's so far out of the statute of limitations, I think that police are not likely to get involved in investigating it due to resource issues. Why would they? You know, it's something that they're not going to focus their resources on when they have things that they do need to be focusing their resources on that are within the statute of limitations and are likely to end in prosecutions.
And when you're someone famous, a lot of times the burden of proof or what you have to prove to go after someone, if you're saying, well, that's not true, do you really have any recourse?
If you're saying it's not true, that's not the end of the story in terms of it being true or not true, of course. You could say it's not true and it could be completely true, and that could be provable in terms of the other person is so credible in terms of how they're able to describe the circumstances that surrounded what happened. A jury would find them credible, versus you could say it's not true and the person who made the accusations could be not credible at all in terms of their memory could be faulty. There could be large inconsistencies in their statements. When we get in front of a jury as a criminal defense attorney, you know, we're very frequently arguing the state or the prosecutor hasn't met their burden of proof being beyond a reasonable doubt. And a lot of the way that we do that is in terms of saying this lacks credibility because there's inconsistencies, because it doesn't make sense. So it isn't always he said, she said, or he said, right, or she said, she said. But many times, yes, that is what it boils down to, and then credibility becomes the issue.
Yeah, which again, as we know, is why a lot of women don't come forward.
They don't want to be questioned about it.
Yeah, it's so
painful.
Sad. All right, always great to talk to you. Whitney, thank you so much for being with us this morning. All right, 7:46 right now.